What's going on, guys? Bob Roche from RocheTechnology.com here with a comparison video for you of the iPhone 4S versus the iPhone 5. Now, this video isn't going to cover every difference in excruciating detail, but what I do want to do in this video is give you guys a look around the phone, what's new, what's changed, what's faster, and overall, is it a good idea if you want to upgrade to an iPhone 5 from an iPhone 4 or 4S. So the first thing I'm going to do is just, like I said, give you guys an overlook of the phone. Now, since the 4S is smaller, I'm going to go ahead and stack it right on top here. Go ahead and move these guys closer. Now, I'll try to give you guys sort of like an aerial view of how much bigger the phone actually is. So as they said in the Apple keynote, the width is the same. Go ahead and move it down here. We'll get into the connectors and stuff a little bit in a second. But as you can see, the width of the phone is actually like identical. If there is a difference, it's really too small to even tell. So the actual width of the phone is the same, and they said that right in the keynote. But you'll notice that it is taller. And that is to make room, probably also inside, but mostly for the bigger display. The iPhone 4S packs a 3.5-inch display. The iPhone 5 packs a 4-inch display. So as you can see, it's not any wider, but it is in fact taller, and by a pretty decent portion. But I'll get a little bit more into that where that comes in handy. But moving around the phone, as you can see, here's the sides. I'll go ahead and try to line these buttons up. As you can see, this switch here is actually spaced out maybe just like a tad bit more on the 5 than on the 4S, but not a big deal. Moving up to the top, as you can see, we don't have a headphone jack up top anymore, which is a very, very welcome addition in my book. Moving over to this side. Oh, and by the way, we do still have the little antenna things on the side here. On the black model, those are obviously black, but I obviously have the white model, so they are white, even though the bezel itself is silver. Something that is kind of weird, I admit, when the iPhone 4 came out, everyone was like, what? No one even thought that was a final design. But overall, it really doesn't bother anybody anymore, myself included. Moving down to the SIM tray here. SIM tray on the 5 is a little bit smaller. That's because they use a nano SIM. Moving to the bottom, we find that headphone jack and the lightning connector on the iPhone 5. Also upgraded, I would say upgraded speaker and microphone on the iPhone 5. Whereas on the iPhone 4S, we still have that 30-pin connector and those older speaker and microphone. And that's back to where we started. Let's go and have a look at the back very quick. As you can see, both backs look very nice. I've always been a fan of the iPhone 4 design. It just looks really nice. But overall, I think this tops it. The anodized aluminum just looks really nice. But you also saw that glass ceiling at the top. It kind of accents things a little bit more. I really do like it. And of course, it says iPhone. It's not like the iPods where it says the capacity. I just want to, I guess, make it simpler with the text. Oh, that's all right with me. Back here, we also have the cameras, which are very similar. This one's slightly upgraded for, better low light performance and things like that. The flash is also spread out a little bit to make room for the microphone here. That probably also comes into effect. Some pictures would get that like sort of a ghosting from the flash. That probably does not happen nearly as often on the iPhone 5, now that the flash is actually a little bit farther away from the camera. So that's pretty much it. That's just a quick look around the phones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start these guys up. iPhone 5 on your left. Go ahead and slide these. Shout out to Live Breathe Tech on Twitter. Now, as you can see, the bigger screen, it starts to shine right off the bat. And that's with the addition of a 5th row of icons, making it for a total of 6, including the bottom dock. Now, while some could say that this actually kind of makes the home screen look that much more cluttered on iOS, I have to say it's very nice because I'm a person, I'm the same way on my iPad, that I don't like to have tons of apps that I really don't use at least once a week. So these are all apps that I use, somewhat frequently, and because of it, I don't have, hundreds of pages of apps. I like to have a very minimum, I would have 1 page of apps if I could. But now, allowing me to have that extra row of icons really does help, because before, this is how it was. I had almost 2 full screens of apps, whereas now I have, 1 and not even a half. So in that respect, I have to say it does make it look a little bit more organized, but you are getting more information at once, which depending on your needs could be good or bad. Now, one of my favorite features about having the bigger screen is that this is actually a 16:9 aspect ratio, whereas that is not. So one app to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and play a video for you guys using the podcast app. And you can see I even did the iPhone 5 second, and that it was that much faster. So as you can see, there is definitely some sort of a performance increase. So I'm going to go ahead and sync those. Like I said, there is some sort of a performance increase from app to app, some more than others. This was a big one. So I'm going to go ahead and play, let's say iPad today. And we'll do, sure, 116.
P720. No.
Now, I'm not going to play these just for, I don't want to say copyright reasons, but really it's not necessary. Now, as you can see, when I rotate the iPhone 5, it does fill the screen, pixel for pixel, whereas when I rotate it on the iPhone 4S, because of the aspect ratio, it will have those bars at the top. You can see that, whereas on the iPhone 5, it does not, and that's it's all because of the aspect ratio. And because pretty much everything these days is shot in a 16:9 aspect ratio, that makes the videos fit the iPhone 5 screen much better than the iPhone 4S. Now, of course, if I want on the 4S to have it fit the screen, you can double tap, but then you lose some off the sides, which I've never been a fan of. So video is definitely a huge improvement with the 16:9 screen as opposed to the 4:3. Now, another thing or really another application that I love seeing more information at once is Twitter. So we'll go ahead and open up Twitter on these. You can see already how much faster it came up on the iPhone 5 than the 4S. And that's not always going to happen. There are some times where this actually opens up very close to this. So, but scrubbing through, I can see more tweets at once. As you can see, I can actually see about like a whole nother tweet, which really isn't a huge deal, just one tweet. But it is nice to have more information at once, especially if you have like a conversation view. You can see more of that conversation than you can on a 3.5-inch screen. And real quick, just to show you again how much more stuff you can have on the screen, something as simple as settings. You have more settings on the screen at once. As you can see, I have 2 more settings on here than I do on here, which was very nice because I was always trying to do my screen brightness. I was trying to change my screen brightness. On the 4S, I have to scroll down to do that, whereas on here, it's already on the screen. There's no scrolling needed. So in a real-world situation, you may not need the bigger screen for every app, but there are definitely times, like with watching videos and where you're having tons of information at once, like Twitter, it's definitely nice to have the bigger screen. So now what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and open up the App Store real quick. And by the way, these are connected to the same Wi-Fi network. I'm not using LTE or 3G on either of these. They are both on my Wi-Fi network, as you can see by the little Wi-Fi sign. Now, it was loading different things. For example, this was loading updates, and this was loading apps for Passbook. So they were loading different things. So that may not be the most fair comparison. But overall, the iTunes Store has a huge upgrade. It looks much nicer this way, especially on the bigger screen where you can see more information at once. As you can see, this whole banner here is showing, whereas this one is like kind of cut off. So all throughout iOS, it is nicer to have that big screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back here to the home screen. And I'm going to go ahead and close out all these apps. Alright, so as you can see, there are no more apps. If I scroll left on here, we have, the music player. But there's the brightness, but nothing else. No actual apps are running. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a couple apps. I'm just going to pick these at random. I did not plan these, so this is sort of like a very real world test of, if some apps load faster. So we'll do, where's my water? So as you can see, it did load faster on the iPhone 5. It did load faster on the iPhone 5 by a pretty decent margin. So let's go ahead and try another app. We'll do Maps. Came up faster on the iPhone 5. And of course, I guess this is in the 3D view in Cupertino. So that is more data to load. Plus that has satellite. So that really wasn't the most fair comparison either. But what we can do, we'll try to go to the Eiffel Tower, for example. Okay, they're both kind of queued up here. And so now on the iPhone 5, what we'll do is go to the satellite view. And honestly, I'm not quite sure if flyover does work here, but I guess we'll find out right now. Yeah, so Apple Maps is still plagued with problems, which you guys have to give them some credit for. This is day one software. This kind of stuff will be improved over time. Apple is on a pretty tight time frame here, especially with the Google, at least what we all suspect of the Google and Apple contract being over. If they didn't release Apple Maps when they did, they would have a mapless OS, and that's not what people want on a smartphone. So this may be premature, but I'd rather have this and have the turn-by-turn navigation, which, by the way, does work very nice. I actually have a video on my channel. I've had absolutely no problems with turn-by-turn navigation. But things like flyover, they're sort of luxury features, and they may not work great out of the box on day one, but give it some time, and I'm sure it will be great. But now we'll go ahead and we'll do something that I know does support flyover, and that is Apple's headquarters. One infinite loop right there. One infinite loop, so we'll go ahead and do that on both. So the iPhone 5, this actually loaded faster, but this found it faster. I would take loading, so actually the 4S loaded faster. Alright, and now what we'll do, so on that we'll go into the building view, or the flyover view, and we'll zoom in. And I will look for some sort of performance increase from this. So very smooth. Also very smooth. There was some lag there, not much. I mean, not a big deal. Whereas on here, I really just don't see much lag at all. Let's go ahead and I'll try not to get my hand in the camera too much here. But it is keeping up pretty nice. I really haven't experienced any lag. If anything, we're just waiting for it to load. But in terms of lag, I really see none here. We'll go ahead and we'll try to do the same thing on the 4S. kind of pan around a little bit. So not too much lag on either device. And honestly, like, this is the first time I've done these, compared them side by side like this, so this is a real world. I really don't know what to expect here. Like I said, this video wasn't really planned, with the results, so. But I have to say that I think the iPhone 5 may just have, like, a better frame rate, but neither device is bad at all. So in terms of performance, depending on the app you want to use and the things that app does, you may or may not get a good speed increase. Now in terms of real day usage, I would say that's the verdict. But when you go ahead and do a stress test with Geekbench on these guys, the A6 processor on the iPhone 5 literally way past doubles that of the iPhone 4S. So the processor in here is capable of much more, which you guys really have to think about. Right now, the A6 is not being used to its full potential, but in a year, when Flyover is working the way it should be, and all the other games that are going to be coming out, I'm sure the 4S will definitely start to not look as great as the iPhone 5 when it has that A6 processor, because the A6 really does have much more potential than that of the 4S. And the last thing I want to talk about is the camera. Now, the one on the back really isn't that big of a difference. I'll go ahead and I'll put up a comparison picture here of the back-facing camera. Nothing too dramatic, but I will say that in the camera app here, I'll go ahead and open that up. The UI is a little bit different. I like the big camera button here. I really do like that. But I'll go ahead and switch to the front-facing camera. There's a skull poster on my ceiling, so there we go. But this actually has been upgraded to a 720p camera, whereas that is just the standard definition. So for things like FaceTime, or if you want to like get into vlogging, you want to go ahead and record. By the way, there's a camera, and there's me. How's life? If you guys want to do some vlogging or just anything that uses a front-facing camera, the quality will be dramatically improved, and that's something we all wanted with the 4S. So we're very disappointed that they didn't change it. Same thing with the iPad. This camera will be making its way into the next iPad, I'm very sure. But for now, definitely a very welcome upgrade to the iPhone 5. So that's all I'm going to talk about today for the iPhone 4S versus the iPhone 5. Now the question everyone's asking is it worth the upgrade from an iPhone 4 or a 4S to an iPhone 5? If you have an iPhone 4 as it is, your 2-year contract is probably over and you can upgrade for the subsidized price. I would absolutely give you the go on that. It's an amazing phone, feels great in the hands, the design is absolutely outstanding. However, if you're not eligible for an upgrade and you have to buy this for the actual retail price and you have no way of, like, for example, I'm not due for an upgrade until next year, but I was able to get this because I'm actually selling this, and it'll actually probably be sold by the time this video goes live. But by the time I sell this and some accessories, things like that, it's basically about the cost of me buying this on a contract. So really, I'm not too worried about it there. But if you have to buy this phone straight out and you really have no way to kind of make up that extra $300 or $400, then I don't think it's really worth. I think you could just stick with your 4S, simply just because at this point, as you saw, with a lot of apps and a lot of different everyday tasks, the iPhone 5 is maybe a few milliseconds faster at best, because right now iOS really isn't showcasing the A6's potential. Maybe if we had things in real time like widgets that are always changing as you're scrolling, those would definitely be a little bit more intensive on the CPU and really showcase that extra horsepower, whereas right now we just have sort of a static springboard. Also, if you're someone like me that likes to have the newest technology, then that alone may be a reason to upgrade to the iPhone 5. If you have the money, or if you can get it to the point where the price is right, then I would definitely recommend it. The iPhone 5, I would definitely have to agree with, is the best iPhone to date, and I would have to say better than the Galaxy, not just because it runs Android, putting the whole software aside, just because this is made of aluminum. It has a very, very nice build quality to it. Even if the Galaxy S3 ran iOS, I would just prefer this hardware more. I just really like the iPhone's design. I always have, especially on this phone with the glass and the aluminum. I just really like this design. It's very lightweight. It's not made of cheap plastic. So what do you guys think of the iPhone 5? Would you like to stick with an iPhone 4S? Would you guys rather have the iPhone 5? Are you going to wait a year, see what the iPhone 5S or the iPhone 6 is going to be? Whatever it is, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. I'm at CPUKid on Twitter. Also be sure to check out RocheTechnology.com and at RocheTechnology on Twitter. And I hope to see you guys back here soon for some more Hackintosh content, unboxings. I'm not going anywhere. See you guys in my next video.